What's my name?
Popeye Doyle. If he doesn't like you, he'll take you apart. And it's all perfectly legal, because Doyle fights dirty.
You want to take a ride there, fat man?
And plays rough.
Anybody want a milkshake?
Doyle is bad news, but he's a good cop.
We're going now. Bye.
How many times have I been downhearted, looked up and saw him smiling like a shining dime? Yeah. And hoped that he would stay and tell me why he was so happy if he had the time.
Who is that clown? Jewish lucky, right? What about the last big-time spenders? You making? No, you? He's spreading it around like the Russians are in Jersey. They say we stick around and give him a tail.
Our friend's name is Boca, Salvatore Boca, B-O-C-A. Well, downtown, they're pretty sure he pulled off a contract on a guy named DeMarco.
That's not a drop. I'll open up a charge for you at Bloomingdale's.
B-O-C-A. Doesn't matter.
And then on our own, after working the whole day and night, we tail him to Brooklyn. And we sat on him for practically a week. Now, who do we come up with?
The French Connection. A millionaire exporter with a record too clean to be true. And Doyle knows it. But he's been known to make mistakes.
Your hunches have backfired before, Doyle.
This time, he can't afford to be wrong.
I know the deal hasn't gone down. I know it hasn't. I can feel it. I'm dead certain.
Last time you're dead certain we hunt the dead cop.
All right, let's hit him. Hit him! All right, nobody move. Put your hands in the air.
The stakeout.
It's me.
The payoff. The chase.
Don't stop. Hey, Coke, you all right?
French Connection.
Hey there, and welcome back to Dave's Movie Diary. Obviously, today I'm talking about The French Connection from 1971. Look, anyone who's listened to a few of these pods can obviously see that I love rewatching movies, particularly movies that resonated with me or that still have a place in the culture. And I'm always intrigued to look at a classic film and try and figure out what actually happens when you sit down and watch it properly, and if it still stands up, and whether it's just been overhyped, and how it resonates now in current times. French Connection is it's one of those films that really doesn't need an introduction. It just sits right there in the canon as one of the defining American crime films. It's always talked about and referenced. But what's interesting is how unromantic it feels once you actually sit with it. It just doesn't behave like a polished, great film. It feels more immediate than that. It's so rough and reactive and really unstable. And it feels like it's just happening rather than being presented, which is why I love it. And so it's a perfect film to talk about here. What's my relationship with this film? It's just always been there. It's always been in the background as an essential viewing film. And I saw it, I'm pretty sure, in the late 80s when I saw a lot of these classic films, when I was really trying to tick a lot of these big films off my list. And I recall just feeling that the movie lived up to the expectations, but it didn't exceed them. I wasn't probably old enough to appreciate some of the aspects of this film. It probably looked a bit too rough, probably. So it was more an academic viewing. Yes, I loved it. I enjoyed it. It's a great chase film, but I put it in its place and moved on. over time, that reaction's definitely changed. I'd probably seen it, I think, 2 or 3 times up until recently. I watched it last year, thereabouts, and the change in my perception was just unbelievable. What really stands out for me now are a few things that didn't hit me the first time. One of them is Gene Hackman's performance. It's not just a great performance, it's a defining one for that kind of film. I'll talk more about that soon. The physical exhaustion that he emits running through this film, and I mean running. He's running so much, and what he goes through, he puts himself through a lot to make this film, and I feel like that's not acknowledged enough. But apart from Gene Hackman, it's a real point in time for crime cinema. New York itself as a real cesspool. This is probably New York at its worst, and a version of the city that no longer exists in that form. Just the grittiness as well, the way that films used to be made, what was expected of actors and directors were more individuals and iconoclasts in William Friedman's case, the director of this film. But the more I return to it, yes, it's a crime thriller for sure. It's a procedural. I do feel like it's more of a character study of Popeye Doyle, disguised as a procedural. But I'll unpack that a bit more. William Friedkin, I mentioned him. He directed this film. It's set in early 1970s New York. It's unrecognizable to the New York we see now. This is New York at street level. Nothing stylized at all. In fact, it's the opposite. It's not cleaned up. A lot of it's filmed in and around decaying districts that are overcrowded. There's rubbish everywhere. There's danger lurking everywhere. It's just overcrowded, visibly strained, decaying infrastructure. It's the constant sense of pressure in the environment itself. And it's in this world that we pick up and start to follow Detective Jimmy Popeye Doyle, played by Gene Hackman. He's a narcotics officer working out of Brooklyn. Doyle isn't a conventional lead. He's really larger than life. He's impulsive. He's aggressive. This is old school policing. He's obsessed. He gets obsessed with cases, and he lives them, breathes them. He lives large. He works hard and plays hard. He likes a drink after work and during work. He works off instinct more than procedure, and once he gets his teeth into something, that's it. It just overtakes him. He's balanced really well by Buddy Russo, who's his partner, played by Roy Scheider. Roy Scheider just starting off the 70s, that would go on and he'd be one of the defining actors of the 70s. He's a much more controlled, more grounded, more stabilizing counterweight to Doyle's volatility, and Roy Scheider's perfect in the role. What happens? They just start to unpick a few threads with a local small time drug dealer. That leads them toward a major heroin smuggling operation that's got international links. Now, at the center of these is Alain Charnier, played by Fernando Rey, celebrated Spanish actor, I believe. He portrays Charnier as a calm, composed, cultural French businessman he's got a real stillness, he's chilled, and that really contrasts sharply with Popeye Doyle and the chaos of New York policing. So what unfolds is not a clean investigation, but I think it's like it would be in real life. It's a process of fragments, a bit of surveillance here, some partial information there. And gradually the police start to put the pieces together. So nothing fully clicks into place. Everything's inferred or delayed or just tantalizingly just out of reach of these police. And we go on the journey. Doyle becomes more focused on Charnier. He's just his number one obsession in life. So the case really stops being professional and tips over into absolute fixation. we get to watch this chase, and it's a chase. It's really it's disguised in more conventional procedural elements, but it's a chase. It just stops now and then, but it's running through the streets. It's chasing. It's crazy car chases and involving trains and boats, you name it. It's just a long chase that never lets up, and the suspense and the action are incredible. You can feel this whole film. The pressure itself becomes the point at the end. All right, William Friedkin, really interesting director. Controversial, that's for sure. You look at some of the films he made, he obviously loved courting that controversy, I think. And he came of age in the early 70s with this film, actually. Really interested in moral ambiguity, definitely not interested in traditional sort of hero narratives. Before this one, he worked in television a bit, had some smaller features that are apparently quite interesting that I haven't got around to checking out. But this one just exploded everywhere. Best Picture. And it just catapulted him to be able to do whatever he wanted. What did he follow French Connection up with? Just a little film called The Exorcist, which should have probably won the Oscar in 1973. But he wasn't done there. He made Sorcerer in 1977, also with Roy Scheider, a remake of the 50s film The Wages of Fear. Didn't do great at the time. It's now been reassessed as one of the great films of the decade. I can attest to that. I've seen it. It's also a brilliant film. Didn't end there. He made some other interesting films. He came up with Cruising in 1980 with Al Pacino. As the name suggests, it's about cruising in the meatpacking districts of New York. Al Pacino's a cop who goes undercover and gets way too close to the action. In a different way than Popeye Doyle, I'll just say that. That movie is wild. To Live and Die in LA in 1985 is also a cult classic that's got a lot of love for it. Also Killer Joe in 2011, another really dark film, actually, that's worth checking out. So really interesting career. A lot of admirers within the industry, especially, but a controversial figure as well. Gene Hackman as Popeye Doyle. What a titan of cinema, of American actors. I was saddened to hear about his demise not that long ago, and the way that it ended for him was grossly unfair for anybody, but especially for him as a 94 or 95-year-old man who'd tried to spend the last 20 or so years of his life in New Mexico, I think, or Arizona, somewhere in that region, just living out his life. I think he actually ended up writing some novels and just probably reflecting on what he'd done. He stopped acting in his early or mid-70s, but he was brilliant up until the end. You look at his filmography, my God. He popped up in Bonnie and Clyde in 1967. People forget that. And then into the 70s, what a decade. You know, he had this. He had a film called Scarecrows with Pacino that's interesting. The Conversation in 1974, that's a Coppola film. That is a absolute classic as well. That's one of the top 10 films of the 70s in my view. He followed that up with Night Moves, which is a very controversial film. It had a 14-year-old Melanie Griffith in it, for one thing, doing things that 14-year-olds should never have to do. He went on through the 80s in more, conventional mainstream films, but then showed up again in the 90s in some big roles, in Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood, Crimson Tide with Denzel, brilliant in that film, and sort of nearly finished it off in 2001 with The Royal Tenenbaums, a Wes Anderson film. What a range, what a physical actor. I think he's grossly underrated. I think he's a fantastic actor. And I think this role is the one that he's always defined by, and quite rightly so. He is Popeye Doyle. Roy Scheider as Buddy Russo, I touched on it before. He does this, he plays this similar role throughout a lot of other films, as the guy trying to keep his head while everyone else loses theirs and gets caught up with emotion. He's really relatable. I mean, look at the guy. He shouldn't have been a movie star. He's got this busted nose. He doesn't look like a movie star. And that's what I love about the 70s. There were heaps of guys like this. I mean, Gene Hackman's another great example. They look like real people and you could relate to them. But he always looked like a guy under pressure and showing humanistic traits. A bit like Harrison Ford did later on in the 80s and 90s in some of his roles. But let's face it, who looks like Harrison Ford? This guy looks like a man's man, but a relatable guy. He's brilliant in this. He's always at Popeye's side, pulls him back from the brink a few times. And he had similar roles in Jaws, Marathon Man, Sorcerer. He did break out a bit with All That Jazz in '79. That's a classic film in its own right. He really stepped out of his range there, and did a fantastic job. So look, he's the counterweight here to Popeye Doyle's energy. I will mention Fernando Rey again as Alain Charnier, the French Connection, the Marseille-based heroin trafficker who thinks that he'll never get caught, that he's smarter than these New York monkeys, that he can see what's going to happen. Very unemotional, very intelligent, cold, stillness, like I said earlier. I've seen him in a couple of other films, Louis Buñuel films, The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie, That Obscure Object of Desire. He's very good at playing morally questionable characters. He's got this pointy little goatee and his eyes dart around. He's a bit of a caricature, but God, he does it well. And he's so easy to hate in this film. You want him to go down, and you just want Popeye to catch up with him and mete out some street justice. So composure. If I had to say one word, composure. That's what he brings. What works? Well, just about everything, to be honest. You feel like you're immersed in New York itself. It's a city under obvious strain. It's degraded. It's unpredictable. William Friedkin really uses the city so well. Hackman's performance is central to it, of course. Doyle looks physically exhausted throughout this film, and no wonder. Gene Hackman's running around in a suit. Literally, you can see he's a big man, Gene Hackman. He's not the slimmest either. This film must have really taken him to the limits. He looks exhausted. He's always on the move. He's always hanging around trying to keep warm, stamping his feet. It's those little details that Friedkin puts into this film that gives it that realism. You can feel him. Even the way his shirts look. You know, they look like they haven't been ironed properly, and he's been living in them for days. There's a great scene where Roy Scheider comes to his apartment and he's just had a night of debauchery, and I wonder if there was any method acting by Gene Hackman in this film. That's what it looks like anyway. I've got to mention I know I said this film's one long chase, but one part stands out, and that is the car chase. It's the best ever. Apologies to Bullitt. Apologies to Against All Odds. Apologies to any other car chase. Speed. Line them all up. They're not as good as this. That car chase where Charnier's henchman, who's his contract killer, is on a train trying to escape. It's one of those overhead tracks where the streets are below. Popeye Doyle is trying to catch him at the next station, and you can see Hackman's doing a lot of the driving. They couldn't fake it. You can see him. I don't know how they did it. He's driving like a maniac. The way that the camera tilts, the sounds, the cars coming out of nowhere. He crashes a few times and you can feel it. You feel like you're in the car with him. It's the best car chase ever. I won't ruin what happens at the end, but it is incredible. If you don't watch this film, watch the car chase. It's uncontrolled mayhem. I've never seen anything like it. I don't know how they did it. So kudos to Friedkin and Hackman and everyone that was involved. The score is brilliant as well. It reinforces everything. It's quite simple, but it's repetitive. It brings an unsettling tone. It's always pushing forward, like the film is. It's one long momentum chain here in this film. Okay, what doesn't work? I'll try and think of something. Maybe the pacing is the main challenge. I don't actually agree, but look, I'm trying to, with these pods, I'm trying to think of what various types of audiences might think. I haven't watched this film with my kids, or young adults, approaching 21 and 19. I wonder what they would think of the pacing in the early parts where Hackman and Scheider are trying to work out what's behind this low-level guy who, by the way, is played brilliantly by Tony Lobianco, who is always an evil-looking guy. What's really behind this guy? Is there more there? Their instinct makes them keep looking. But that takes a bit of time. There's stakeouts. And the film portrays the waiting around really effectively, I thought. It gives you a realistic version of policing and surveillance, which is a big part of breaking down narcotics rings. So for me, it ticks along beautifully. It builds that tension and the storyline, and we get to know the characters a lot more than modern films do, where you sort of jump in at the start. But I do wonder how younger audiences would find it. Hopefully they get pulled along by how brilliantly Friedkin controls the action. But just saying, I do know how short the attention spans are these days. So with that, the film is really observational rather than constantly escalating. It is constantly escalating, but sometimes it's in short shifts. It does allow the process to unfold rather than engineering it or manifesting it, if that makes sense. There's not these constant payoffs in terms of achievements, but I do think there's emotional payoffs throughout. The adrenaline's always racing through my head when I watch this film anyway. But look, some of that restraint can feel slow if you're used to more structured, I guess, modern thriller rhythms. But I would argue that pacing is what makes the film feel authentic. And it's not a film that's built around resolution. It's the chase. What's that old saying? The chase is better than the catch. That describes this film perfectly. So look, the movie blew me away last year when I watched it. It didn't lessen any for watching it just recently. If anything, I can appreciate it more. There's a lot going on here. Still holds up in a very direct, present way. It's really tense. It's stripped back. It's uncomfortable in its realism. It doesn't smooth anything out, and that's why it's a classic. That's why it still resonates. I love films about obsessive characters. I'm doing a pod, so maybe I'm one too. The characters, the filmmaking, its refusal to look away from its environment, it's all about obsession. 50 years later, it still feels like it's moving just fast enough that you don't want to miss a second of it. I can't say anything more than that. Go and check it out. It's on Disney at the moment, and well worth your time. It's about 2 hours, so I think you can find time to watch this classic film. Enjoy it, and catch you next time.